Late at night at Nashville Memorial Hospital, one of the most modern and luxurious medical facilities in the city. Outside, the piercing wail of an ambulance siren ripped through the quiet darkness, shrill enough to raise goosebumps. A stretcher was rushed into the emergency room. On it lay a young woman, her face drained of all color as if the blood had been pulled from her veins. Her tailored designer suit was still soaked with streaks of red that hadn't yet dried. Cassandra Rowland, 35-year-old CEO of Rowland Tech, one of the most powerful faces in Nashville, now hovered on the fragile line between life and death. Cassandra gripped the nurse's hand, her voice breaking as though forced out of a chest burning with pain. "Please, just make it fast. I don't want to feel the pain anymore." No doctor had arrived yet. Only one man burst in. A man in an old, worn security jacket, his eyes sharp yet steady. "What happened?" he asked urgently. "Car accident," the nurse replied, her voice trembling noticeably. The man didn't hesitate. He took off his security jacket and gently draped it over Cassandra. His voice was low, warm, and impossibly steady. "You're going to be all right. I promise." As he held her hand, the overhead lights fell across his wrist, revealing rows of tattooed numbers, codes carried only by military medics. Cassandra saw them. Her eyes widened, not only in fear, but because she recognized something she thought she had buried long ago. His name was Nathaniel Carver, 38 years old, single father, night shift security guard at Nashville Memorial. This is the story of a fateful night, of a man quietly forgotten in the hospital corridors, and of a cold, unyielding CEO who would soon learn the most expensive lesson of her life. If you enjoy emotional and unexpected stories like this, make sure to subscribe so you won't miss the ones we publish every day. And the question is, where had Cassandra met Nathaniel Carver before, and why did that single glance leave her so shaken? 9:30 p.m. Nate Carver walked into Nashville Memorial Hospital with a worn-out backpack and a cheap cup of coffee he had grabbed from a convenience store. Beside him was an 8-year-old girl with a ponytail and a tiny bunny-shaped backpack. Sadie Carver. "Daddy's going to work now, sweetheart. Sit here and do your homework, okay? Don't wander around." Sadie nodded obediently, opened her math notebook, her little legs swinging beneath the chair. She was used to this. Every night, while her father worked the shift, Sadie stayed in the hospital cafeteria, doing homework, drawing pictures, sometimes falling asleep on the table to the soft hum of the vending machines. No one knew Nate's story, but if you looked closely, if you really paid attention, you would see it. The cheap watch on his wrist, its glass chipped with a thin crack, like an old wound that never fully healed. The faded combat boots, the same pair that carried him through 3 deployments in the Middle East, now worn down at the soles, yet still the boots he wore every single night. And most of all, the way he looked at people. Not the gaze of an ordinary security guard, but the eyes of someone who had witnessed far too much death, far too much pain, to be afraid of anything anymore. 5 years earlier, Nathaniel Carver had been a combat medic in the United States Army. He had completed 3 deployments, saved over 40 fellow soldiers, and had been awarded the Silver Cross for bravery. Then, one night in Kandahar, Afghanistan, his phone rang. A call from Nashville. His wife, Emma Carver, had died in a car accident. A truck had lost control and slammed directly into her car on her way home from work. Emma died instantly. Sadie, only 3 years old at the time, had been with a neighbor. Nate requested to return home immediately. When he lifted Sadie into his arms, the child looked up at him with round, innocent eyes and asked, "Daddy, where did Mommy go?" Nate couldn't answer. He just held his little girl tight, letting his tears fall into her soft hair. From that moment on, he never went back to the battlefield. His fellow soldiers begged him, "You're the best combat medic in the unit, Nate. You save people's lives." He only shook his head. I've already lost one person. I can't lose another. Nate needed a stable job, a job that didn't require travel, a job that allowed him to be with Sadie every single day. So he chose night shift security, $15 an hour, working from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. No full insurance, no bonuses, no recognition, but enough to raise his daughter, enough for Sadie to have a proper breakfast every morning, enough to pay the rent for a one-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of Nashville, where Sadie slept in the bed, and Nate took the old sagging sofa. Most people in the hospital had no idea about Nate's past. To them, he was simply the nice security guy, the one who held doors for patients, the one who pushed wheelchairs when nurses were overwhelmed, the one who brought a cup of water to a patient in the dead of night. No one asked who he used to be, and Nate never told. But tonight, everything would change. Forever. At the same time, in downtown Nashville, inside Rowland Tower, the headquarters of Rowland Tech Industries, 28th floor, CEO's office. Cassandra Rowland sat behind a walnut desk, facing 3 glowing computer monitors. Her hair was neatly tied back, her charcoal gray suit perfectly pressed without a wrinkle. On her wrist was an $85,000 Patek Philippe, 35 years old, self-made CEO, the youngest billionaire in Tennessee. Cassandra had built an entire tech empire with her own 2 hands, not with family money, not with mentorship, not with luck, only with a woman's razor-sharp intelligence, and a heart that had turned to stone long ago. "Mitchell," Cassandra called through the intercom. Mitchell Barnes, 32, dressed in a crisp black suit, walked in with a tablet in hand. "Yes, Ms. Rowland? Has the contract with Stellar Dynamics been signed?" "They're still hesitating over the compensation clause, ma'am." Cassandra frowned. "Call them. Tell them if they don't sign within 24 hours, I'll move to another partner. And make sure they know that partner is their direct competitor." Mitchell nodded, typing quickly. "Anything else, ma'am?" "A reporter from the Nashville Business Journal wants to interview you about your charity program." "Decline." "But this could be a good opportunity for—" "I said decline, Mitchell. I don't do charity for praise. The Rowland Foundation transfers money, stays quiet, and moves on. Is that clear?" "Yes, ma'am." Mitchell stood, then hesitated for a moment. "Ma'am, are you planning to go home early tonight? It's already 11 p.m. Cassandra looked at him, her gaze sharp enough to cut glass. "Mitchell, I pay you to work, not to worry about my sleep schedule." Mitchell lowered his head, murmuring, Yes. My apologies." When Mitchell left the room, Cassandra leaned back slightly in her chair. She stared out through the large glass window, where the Nashville skyline shimmered like an ocean of stars beneath her feet. But in this vast, luxurious, immaculate office, she felt nothing but emptiness. No family, no close friends, no one calling to ask, "How was your day?" Only work, contracts, business deals, and power. The very thing she had sacrificed her youth to chase. Cassandra stood up, slipped on her coat, grabbed her car keys. It was time to go home. She stepped into her private elevator, descended to the underground garage, and drove her navy blue Porsche 911 out into the night. The Nashville night was pitch black, the damp mist blurring her windshield. Cassandra drove toward the River North district, where her luxurious penthouse was located. But her eyelids grew heavy. Last night, she had slept only 3 hours. Today, she had sat through 4 back-to-back meetings. Everything began to blur before her eyes. Then, a truck shot out of the intersection like a ghost. Cassandra slammed the brakes, but it was already too late. The collision ripped through the night. Metal twisted, glass shattered. The world spun, then sank into darkness. 11:47 p.m. The hospital radio at Nashville Memorial crackled urgently. "Emergency inbound. Traffic collision at Cumberland Bridge. ETA 3 minutes. Female victim, approximately 30 years old, severe trauma, dropping blood pressure." Nate was patrolling near the emergency bay. He heard the ambulance siren approaching from afar, sharp, cold, and familiar, like the clashing steel sounds from the battlefield. The automatic doors slid open. 2 paramedics rushed in with a stretcher. On it was a long-haired woman, her clothes torn, blood smeared across her body. Female, 35. Severe impact on the passenger side. Possible internal bleeding. Blood pressure 90/60. Dropping! Nurse Sophie Mallory ran out, her face draining of color.